Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. I want to thank June for coming because this is my custom, is to welcome our guests. And because I know they're coming with a couple of things that are very expensive to me in my eyes. Time is a very precious commodity. How we treat time, what type of relationship we have time, this a lot about ourselves. The other is the journey. The journey housed who we were and created us as who we are today. And so we want to thank June for coming and spending both of those precious commodities here with us at Threads of Enlightenment. Thank you so much, June, for coming.
It is my pleasure. Thank you.
It is an honor. One day we're going to tell the people what took place. But one of the things that I tell people it's an honorable position to have is to become a servant. When we serve others, I tell them that we go on two journeys in this life. The one is for ourselves, the individual journey, and the other is to become interdependent, where we offer ourselves to another through service. So how do you serve others?
So first of all, I think we're all here for each other and everyone is here to help each other. And people need to remember that, not just at the holidays or Thanksgiving or whatever. So I died when I was 27 and people called it a near-death experience, and I'd never heard the terminology before. And I never considered it that because I literally died. And I went to whatever you want to call it, heaven, fifth dimension, the other side. And it was an experience like no other. And there really are not words to describe how it feels on the other side because it's absolutely amazing. Yeah. And I can tell you that I've always been in positions of helping others. I've been in business my whole life, and I've hired hundreds of employees and mentored people and taught, I had daycares taking care of children and things. But as you get in touch with your soul, you understand that your path here is different and the reasons that you're here are different. Some people are not here to help the world, and some people have a higher journey. It's just that simple. Yeah. So what I try to do is help people get in touch with their soul, because that's who you truly are. You're not this body that sits here. When you go to the other side, trust me, no one's got a body. There's no black, white, yellow, green. There's no different religions. It's all one. It's all one. And when you get in touch with your soul, you understand that. So, we all have this body. We all have a brain in our head, right? Most of us. But that is nothing more than a computer. It's a high level computer, and it helps you process the information that you're given. And when you make decisions from your brain, it's literally a crapshoot. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, but you're always questioning it. Did I make the right decision? Yeah. So when you're in touch with your soul, it's always the right decision. It's a knowing. You know it's the right decision 100% of the time, and it always works out for your highest and your best. And that's what I teach people how to do and how to live their life. And when you can look at life from a higher perspective and live it that way, life is amazing. The universe is amazing. Energy is amazing. Yeah. Everything's amazing. You're just grateful for being here and doing what you can do. And when I can teach someone else how to do that and how to get in touch with their soul and change their entire life, it's very fulfilling for me because I've helped, and that's what I love to do. To help.
I think that is one of the rewards of being a servant, is that it is fulfilling to you, the individual that is serving others, because it puts you into a certain state where you are not looking at your needs at all. You're actually not even thinking about it. You are totally engrossed in that individual that is before you and the exchange that you're having with them. One of the things that we do here as our custom, June, is to go back. The childhood is usually the first space that we get a chance to visit as visitors on this planet. And we learn a lot. I tell people that's where a lot of data is deposited into you and I. Invite us into your family. What was that unit like?
So I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. I'm one of 8 children, all the same parents, but they were very physically, mentally abusive. They were both hoarders. I don't consider myself, I don't consider myself raised by them. I was dragged up by all the rest of the kids. But again, I believe that we chose this life. We chose our parents. We choose the relationships we have. We planned this life before we came here. And if I had not had such a difficult upbringing and a difficult life, I wouldn't be able to relate to all the people that I work with and that I help. It's the old adage, don't judge me till you walk a mile in my shoes. Well, there's not much in my life that I haven't been through that someone can come to me and say, oh, I'm all this messed up because this happened and this happened. It's like, yeah, it's not who you are. It's a challenge that you wrote into your life so that you can look at things from a different perspective and you can overcome it.
Yeah.
And by the grace of God, I've overcome pretty much everything that's been thrown at me in my life. And, the rest of my family was not that fortunate. Most of my family was drug addicts, alcoholics. I've had 2 sisters that have passed away already. Mental illness runs in the family, a lot of things. And, when I was a child, I had a lot of psychic ability and mediumship ability. I would wake up in the middle of the night and see spirits around my bed. I'd hear voices calling my name and think it was my parents. My youngest memory was probably 3 or 4 years old. And when you're that little, it really scares the crap out of you. And when you can't talk to anybody about it, you're really stuck in your own little world trying to figure out, what is this? And it scares you. And I'd go back to bed and pull the covers up over my head and I'd see the shadows coming at me. So, I learned how to try to block it out as best as I could as a child. But I was always interested and I was always drawn towards like the paranormal. And my mom didn't raise me. My dad kidnapped the last 5 of us when I was 10 and told me that my mom threw us out, which was not the case. So I had no idea that my mom was a medium. My dad would tell us that she was crazy. So of course, when my abilities opened up, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to say anything. They're going to think I'm crazy. So, but when it's your time, it's the old adage, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I was very blessed that when my abilities opened up for the second time, when I was 52, I couldn't turn it off. I thought I was going to go crazy. I was working in my own business as a medical esthetician, and every person I put my hands on, I could tell you everything there was to know about them. The people that had passed in their life were showing up in the room to talk to me and tell me information while I'm trying to do a facial on somebody. It was crazy. And I was calling every psychic medium I could find in, the magazines to, how do I learn how to shut this off? I don't know. I don't know. And thank God I was brought to the right people to teach me how to turn it on and off, how to work with it. And then my education from there took over from the other side, because once it opened back up and, a lot of people that have passed away with a near-death experience and come back, they don't know how to get that feeling back and they don't want to be here anymore. So a lot of them commit suicide, which is terrible. And you can get that feeling back. You can connect to the other side if you connect to your soul. And I teach people how to do that through meditation, because meditation and being grateful are the 2 easiest ways to raise your vibration. It's all about frequency. It's all about your energetic vibration. And, I'm blessed that my vibration is much higher from coming back from the other side into my body. And it's not difficult for me to really reach that high vibration to connect to the other side. It will. But anyone can do it. It's a matter of practicing and wanting to do it. So I teach that as well.
And that is incredible. This young girl that was brought up in a fearful environment, if you will, very busy, apparently, with all the siblings and so forth. And she becomes aware of the other side, if you will. And you had mentioned she was a fearful girl in the sense that that's normal for a young child to have all of those uncertainties because it's so unfamiliar to her. And she begins to navigate for a minute, June, and she's moving through life. What was she like, that little girl?
So
What
I
was
grew
she
up,
like in the midst of that?
my father was a misogynist, and he believed that women had two purposes in life, sex and babies. That was it. That was your
Yeah,
purpose. And he had been in business his whole life and was not a very good businessman, but he was intelligent and had a lot of luck as far as that goes. So I started my first business when I was 16, and I was a
wow,
workaholic, and I inherently felt that I had to prove that as a female, I was as good as any male or better.
yeah, yeah,
So I spent many, many years in business. I had several businesses. He sent me to school starting at 10 to be to be a chef. I spent 9 years training to be a chef. And I've owned restaurants, I've owned daycare centers, I've owned all kinds of different businesses. And until I bailed him out financially of his business, it was like
yeah,
he didn't value me. But
yeah,
by that time, I had already valued myself enough and found my own self-worth that when his comment to me was, I appreciate it, you should have been born a man, my comment was, no, I should have been born a woman. I'm very happy being a woman. I can do anything a man can, if not better,
yeah,
and you're welcome.
yeah. And June, having this entrepreneurial spirit at such a young age, and were escorted into that field because you said you by that time when you loaned him the money you were confident.
Mhm.
How did you get confident from this girl that was fearful? How did you begin to?
It
What was
happened
that
by
journey like?
it happened by being able to provide for myself,
Hmm.
working hard, being able to financially support myself, and then getting married to someone that was at the time a nice person, and having children and a family. And those were the things that I missed out at as a child. I didn't get to be a child. I didn't get to enjoy family. So I was able to have a family and enjoy my life a little bit and separate. And I was able to rise above um, the philosophy that was ingrained in me as a child of not being worthy. And I mean, I never knew where my next meal was coming from as a child, to be honest. I didn't never ate a
Yeah.
meal at the table or anything. I would go to friends' house and eat. They taught me how to eat with a knife and fork, believe it or not.
Wow.
And I mean, there's always things that you take with you from lifetime to lifetime. Okay.
Yeah.
And we reincarnated every lifetime as a man or a woman. And I do know that I've taken through a lot of male traits with me from my last few lifetimes. So I do operate more, I think more as a male than a female sometimes. And that created problems in my life as well. So it didn't allow me to let the male in my life have his role. Okay.
Hmm.
So if a picture had to get hung instead of me asking so he could now play his role and his part, I'd be the
Yeah.
first one to grab a hammer,
Yeah.
which now I've taken away from him his opportunity to play his role in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So it's been a learning process and experience as we go through the journey. But everything, as you get older, you're able to look back at the breadcrumbs of your life and see how everything brings you to the next place and the next place and the next place and brings you to where you're supposed to be, provided you're listening to your soul. Because if you're
Yeah.
going against the grain and you're not listening to your soul, it's going to be a long journey. You're going to have to keep circling back and repeating the same mistakes, the same issues, the same problems until you learn the lesson that it is that you're here for, that you're supposed to learn. So thankfully I learn well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I listened to my soul. My first big business that I set up was a daycare center for 125 children. I was still in the middle of the divorce. I had literally
Mhm.
$10,000 in my pocket from working a second job. And I couldn't find decent daycare for my third son, who was 10 months old. But I kept
Mhm.
hearing, I need to open a daycare. I need to open a daycare. I've got no experience in it, no background in it, but I got a good business head. And
Yeah.
I went and rented a 5,000 square foot building that cost me $5,000 a month. And it needed $100,000 of renovations with no money, no background, no nothing. And everybody's like, you are insane. But I did it.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was supposed to do it. My soul kept telling me, this is what I'm supposed to do. The minute I saw the building, my soul told me, this is the building. And I didn't even understand at that point that it was my soul that was telling me that. But I knew it wasn't my head. It was something inside.
Yeah, to get to that, because I tell people, try to educate folks that when that person makes a decision, everything will line up to make it come to pass.
Absolutely.
Until you get there, it is not, it's your conscious mind that is going to be saying this, I need to do this, I need to do that.
Brain. Yep, your computer brain.
But then when your soul, we call it in they call it the subconscious mind, that individual under that noise, when he makes that decision, it will always come to pass. You will watch and I believe everything is energetic, that once that decision is made, the people now that the situations will be created to accomplish what you had just said would come to pass. And it's amazing. Until you do that, I tell people, you will always be in that circular life where you are never, ever come out until you get in touch with that individual to guide you out of that circle. And that is what it is. It is the soul of the individual, because that's who you are. The house is not who you are. That soul is you. And so you have to learn how to
listen.
Bring him into place. So now here you are, the entrepreneur field is a perfect place to be there, because you learn so much. You learn about trusting that soul when it comes to making decisions. You learn so much there. You learn about who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, and so forth. As you're moving through, you mentioned that you were in the midst of your divorce when you began to listen to that soul for this daycare. And you mentioned before that we were talking about you're 27 years old. How old were you at that point? Because you had an interesting encounter that took place at 27. How old were you, June, when that piece where you started the school, the daycare, sorry?
I was 29. It was 2 years after I had passed.
Okay, so let's go back then as to that day when you had an opportunity to move from one space to the next. How did that come about?
It's just a matter of listening. You have that. Everyone has psychic ability and intuition. Everyone has it. It's a matter of listening to it. And quite honestly, I wasn't paying attention that I was even listening to it. It was a knowing. And it's I tell people, if you're driving to work and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I shouldn't go that way today. I better go the other way. That is your soul. When you go the other way and you realize you missed a major car accident or something, that's your soul. You have to learn to listen to it. It's like, I used to tell my teachers, if a child gets hurt and you think you should dial 911, do it. If you think about it, do it. If there's not an emergency, trust me, the ambulance is not going to take the kid away, but don't think you should do it and not do it. So your intuition is the same way. If there's something that you think you should be doing, do it. If it's your soul telling you, do it. The universe is always conspiring to make sure that everything that you do in your life is for your highest and best, provided you're listening to your soul and you're not just in your computer brain trying to weigh out the pros and cons. Should I do this? Should I do that? That's all living in the 3D world. That's not living in who you really are. That's not connecting to your soul and living the true life that you're supposed to live here. And it's very difficult for analytical people. My brain's very analytical and I'm very stubborn.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult. I mean, I've been one of the biggest skeptics there ever was. I would go to haunted vacations with my husband because I was so drawn to the paranormal. And I'd be like, yeah. Well, when the stuff that started happening to me, the stories that I could tell you, there's absolutely no way of denying that there's a whole other realm there that's here to work for us.
No,
It's
I
just
agree with that.
amazing. It's just amazing when you learn. I mean, your whole life turns into, just amazing adventure at that point.
Was it an accident or did you went into like a trance kind of a thing? Because I've heard both, where someone was doing something and boom, they were there. And when they got there, couldn't decipher, if you will, if they were alive or dead.
Oh,
And
when I
then
passed,
that's,
no, when I
yeah,
passed, it was a medical issue. I was allergic to medication that they gave me. So as soon as they
yeah.
gave it to me, I died. Yeah. And
Okay,
it
so
was
you went into the hospital for a medical
right.
situation. They
Yeah.
gave you a med and you passed. And
Right.
talk to us about that particular experience, because it later came out that lots of information was given there, and you had a new life there, even though you didn't know all of what it entailed. Explain to us what happened there.
So what I have learned is that because our souls are pure energy, that when your soul leaves your body and goes into the light, quantum physics jumps in there, because now your soul is traveling at the speed of light. And when your vibration is that high, it's just incredible. So my soul, as soon as they injected the IV with the medication, I immediately coded. And my soul immediately left my body. And, I didn't know where I was, to be honest. All I knew was I was looking down and I could see and hear everything. I could see the doctor in the room. I could hear, I saw him go over to me and then go over and hit the button on the wall. And a couple of minutes later, the crash cart comes in and I can hear the nurses sitting out the front desk talking about it, that I don't know if he's going to lose, it's going to be his first loss or something like that. And while all this is happening, I'm in this space that is just so loving and so amazing. And you have all the knowledge of all your lifetimes immediately right back. And then I start watching this movie play out in front of me, literally this 3D movie of my life, of every person that I've met that had connected to me, that had done something nice for me, everyone that I had loved, every important moment. And then I hear from behind me, it's not really your time to go. You can stay if you want to, or you can go back. It's your choice. And when they said that to me, I thought about my children. And I only had 2 at the time. And I said, oh, I know that I'm supposed to be here to enjoy and help and teach my children. I need to be here for them. And as soon as I made that decision, I was immediately back in my body. It was incredible. And, in the meantime, I've been watching this whole scenario play out below me where, they inject the line, it doesn't do anything. They come in with the paddles, they're doing the paddles on me, it's not working. They're tipping the bed up to try to get the blood to my head and slapping my face. And the doctor's like, we can't lose you, we can't lose you. And when I came back, I mean, they tell you brain damage at 3 minutes, but that's not always the case, quite honestly. And it had to be much longer than 3 minutes for this all to transpire. I would say probably 5, 6, 7 minutes at least. And when I came back, this guy was like, oh my God. He goes, thank God, thank God. He goes, I can't even tell you. He goes, if this is not the end of my month, you wouldn't be here. Apparently he was a resident. They have the residents do these tests, not doctors. He goes, I wouldn't have known to even that there was a problem. I didn't bother to tell him that if I didn't want to come back, I wouldn't be here either.
Yeah, I remember having a similar experience, and I had seen myself leaving. And because of my children, I said no. And I came back into my body because I kept, yeah, it was my children that's caused me to come back. So here you are, you had this really powerful experience, June. How did it affect you after you came back in and you are now going back into quote unquote regular life?
So it was really hard to talk about. And I think I told my husband what happened. I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't talk about it to anybody because when I talked about
Yeah,
it, I would just, the emotion that built up, I would just be in tears because the feelings that you have, the sensation is just incredible on the other side. It took me years really to be able to talk about it. And even now, when I speak about it publicly and stuff, I get a little bit teary eyed because the feelings, I can't, I have a purpose here. I'm here for it, but I can't wait
yeah,
to go back. I can't wait to go back.
yeah, I'm
You
sure.
know, and I
To
try to
have
donate my
that.
time to people that are on their deathbed or dying and let them know, don't worry about it. Don't be afraid. It's amazing. Go into the light. It's just amazing. It's the people that don't go into the light that are afraid, that are stuck here as ghosts that I feel bad for. And I've moved a
Yeah.
few of those along because a lot of them are lost, like little children. They get very lost looking for their parents here. So I've moved a lot of people into the light, and it's great when I can help the people on this side and the other side at the same time.
So here
And
you
that's
are. You
amazing.
were 27 when that happened, as you mentioned. And
Right.
then the next, previously, or a little earlier, you said you were in your 50s when this thing kicked back in to a degree that you started seeking, looking at to getting help. Within that those years, June, talk to me. How was life
So
within those
that's
years?
when I was very drawn to it, and I was
Yeah,
collecting paranormal books and I would watch the paranormal shows and I would go on haunted vacations. I've stayed everywhere, the Queen Mary, the Wally House, you name it, I've been there, Alcatraz. And I
yeah,
would, it would kind of scare me because I would kind of see things, out of the corners of my eyes. But because I was still fearful, they weren't opening my abilities fully. You
yeah.
cannot do what I do and have any kind of fear. You have to be comfortable. You have to understand who you're talking to, what you're dealing with. You can't have fear. And I don't. And they have given me quite the education from the other side so that I can do the things that I'm supposed to do and help the people that I'm supposed to help without having fear.
Yeah, and so here you are, you recognize because as a young woman, a young girl, she was a fearful individual under the blankets and so
Yeah, I
forth.
still had a lot of fear. I did. Yeah.
So yeah, fear is
Yeah.
good. It's how you use it,
Well, fear
in the
isn't good.
sense.
Well, I'll tell you,
Well,
fear,
yeah,
fear is something that's created by your brain. It's your brain's
yeah,
job to create fear. Why? Because it's your job. Your brain's job is to protect you, and it protects you by creating fear. But now
yeah,
most people make their decisions based on fear. And you can't. When you're making your decisions based on fear, it's a crapshoot. You never know if it's right or wrong. You're not making that decision from your soul because your soul does not have fear. Your soul is pure love. And people think the opposite of love is hate. It's not. The opposite of love is fear.
yeah. I agree. So here's this girl. Okay, she is a mother now, has children, and she is learning. How did you learn? Because by the time you came to the to get the daycare center, you had to learn to be familiar with that. What were some of those incidents, if you will, that began to prepare you and you began to recognize in your life that this inner you can depend on it? How did that started to come about in your life?
It really didn't come about other than the fact that I knew I was the only one I could really depend on in life, because if you don't have anybody else to fall back on, I couldn't fall back on family. I have friends. I have very good friends, thankfully, that have been wonderful in my life. But other than that, it was just me.
Yeah.
And until my abilities really opened up, I mean, I was going through a second divorce, and I was losing my businesses. My life had fallen apart completely. And that's the reason at 52 that I started to meditate. And when I meditated, my abilities opened up 100,000%, and I connected to the other side again. And that's who I trust. I trust the other side that's coming through my soul.
Yeah, meditation, I tell people, it is one of the most powerful tools that one can utilize to get into transition from one realm to the other.
Exactly.
Meditation and the breath within meditation, because I've seen and I've been around people who were dying and have died, and it's the breath that they would
Well,
release and take in, and
yeah. When you're
that,
meditating, you have to breathe properly, or you
yeah,
lose the connection, because you're connecting through your pineal gland. When you're
yeah,
dying, the breath is so little because there's such little amount of their soul left in their body, quite honestly. That's just enough of their soul left to keep their body moving and keep their
yeah.
body breathing. That's, yeah.
Yeah, is that, but I was saying to them that breath is the important thing that you have to learn how to, it can transition you from one place to another. So here you're learning about you brought in, as you stated, meditation. When you brought in meditation into your space, June, what began to happen to you?
That's when my abilities opened up immediately. Like I said,
Yeah,
everybody that I was working on or with, I knew everything there was about. The first woman that came in, I'm like, hey, did your aunt just die this weekend? She goes, yeah, how'd you know that? I'm like, I'm having something really weird happen. I don't know how to explain it, but did you clean her house out? She goes, yeah. I'm like, did you find one of those monkey sock puppets from the 50s that has the eyes in it and stuff? How random is that, right? And she's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah. I'm like, is this woman just messing with me? And it was just one person after the next. Everything I said happened to be true, and it was random, crazy stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So here you are, you're having all this data coming at you, and you are obviously overwhelmed as this data is coming in and coming in, and you're beginning to search, because you said when the student is ready, the teachers began to come in. When you began to search and make those phone calls, how did the teacher step in to the student? What was that situation that brought that individual to you?
She wanted me to bring through someone that had passed in her lifetime, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that. She's like, just ask them. I'm like, okay, and I did. I brought in her entire family.
Yeah, wow.
So it was a process.
Yeah.
It was a process.
And as you began to expand in that arena, and how were you as an individual? How were you managing yourself at that time?
Just meditating, just trying to learn, just trying to understand what was happening, and just trying to go with the flow. That's all
Yeah.
you can do.
And now how did you begin to start moving forward into, because I know you said this lady came, how did you begin to expand going out into the world, if you will, June, to others, clients and stuff like that? How did you started to reach out to them?
I worked into the business that I had. So I started offering readings of cards for people.
Uh-huh.
And, they were having me bring through people that had passed and give them closure and things like that. And then doing events as well.
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
that for a couple of years while I was training and studying. Yeah.
And how did you manage when COVID came into our space, if you will?
Well, I had already created a 7-week online program called the Relationship Mastery Program, and I was reconciling people that were struggling with divorce themselves. I only work with one person in the relationship, And my success rate is very, very high. So that's what I was spending my time doing.
That is awesome. And you guys that are listening, and you're hearing June's story, and maybe you have family members that and folks that you have questions, if you will. I have someone that is able to help you out to get in touch with your soul, to make the decisions from your soul, so that you can have this new life that you heard June and I talk about, because that's where you have to make this decision. And when you do, trust me, your life will explode in many ways that you will not be aware of. But that's where it starts. And so you guys, I'm going to provide you guys everything, that all of her links, all of everything that she has, so that you can get into some of those readings as far as relationships, healing, whatever you need. She will be able to facilitate you and work with you on one-on-one, so that you can be able to get a chance to reconnect with yourself, so that you can begin to open up and change your life. June, I want to thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you very much, Ken. You have a great week.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.